Okay, again, the review for exam number 2 will be over chapter 3, 4, and 5. We'll start with chapter 3, which is about cells, cell structure and function. So cell is the basic unit, okay, the basic unit, structural and also functional unit of living. So in the cells, it has the capability to perform all living action or characteristics like growing, response to the stimulus, metabolisms, reproductions, and etc. So cell is the basic unit of living. And then the study of cell is called the cytology. Cyto means cell, logy means science of. So this is science of cell. And the cells consist of three main parts, right? Which is the boundary of the cell is called the cell membrane. Then the content of the cell is called the cytoplasms. And the biggest organelle that you can see using the just regular microscope is called the nucleus. Okay, so just for your information, nucleus is actually organelle. Okay, this is the biggest organelle. Now, if you see the cytoplasm, which is the content of the cell, it actually consists of cytosol. Cytosol is water. Okay, so water inside the cell, or ICF. It is also known as a cytosol. And there are organs, small organs inside the cell that perform specific functions. All of them is called the organelles. Okay, start with the biggest one, nucleus. So nucleus, then we have ribosome, there is RER, SER, there is Golgi apparatus, there is lysosome, there is proteasome, there is peroxisome, and cytoskeleton. One more I forget is very important, the mitochondria. Okay, so make sure you know all these organelles, including the function for your exam number 2. If you know it, then you will be able to answer the question easily. Okay, and then the cell membranes, okay, the framework is called the phospholipid bilayer. Remember, phospholipid is a molecule that has two main parts, which is the head, which, okay, the head is hydrophilic head. Hydrophilic means love water. So the head will be facing water inside and outside. And the tail is hydrophobic. Hydrophobic tails, which is fear of water. It will be away from water. Right? So that's the main framework of the cell membrane. In the cell membrane, there is also proteins. Proteins. There are two types of proteins based on the structure. The first one is integral protein, and the second one is peripheral proteins. Okay. So if it is cell membrane like this, so it has two layers, bilayer of phospholipid. Then the integral protein is the protein that crossing the cell membrane. So this is the integral protein. The peripheral proteins is maybe outside or inside. It's not crossing the cell membrane. So this is the peripheral protein. Okay, so this is based on structure. And based on function, there are 6 types of proteins. The first one is the one that's used by the ion to cross the cell membrane. It's called the ion channel. Each ion have their own channel. So therefore, in our cell membrane, we have sodium channel, for example. Okay, we have potassium channel, we have chloride channel, we have calcium channel. Okay, so each ions will have their own gate or their own channel. The second one is called a transporter. This is the one that transport bigger molecules like amino acids and glucoses will be using transporter. The next one is called the receptor. This is mostly outside the cell, okay, on the cell membrane. And this is the one that receives maybe hormones or neurotransmitters. And then enzyme. There are also proteins in the cell membrane that has function as an enzyme, which is increase metabolism inside the cell. There are also proteins that has a function as a markers. So each cell, each individual, each person will have different markers on their cell. Therefore, if we get cell from other people, if it is not compatible, it will be rejected. It sometimes is really dangerous. Like for example, if you get blood transfusions from people that have different blood type, because what? Because their markers are different. Okay, sometimes it is dangerous. It can kill the recipient. And linker, which is the protein that link one molecule with other molecules, maybe inside or outside the cell. There is another molecules in the cell membrane. It's called the cholesterol. Right? And this cholesterol is actually has a function to make the cell membrane become stronger. So cholesterol is needed by our body. In examples over here, is needed by the cell membrane to be stronger. The property of the cell that only allowing movement of certain molecules, so they have the ability to select molecules, is called selective permeability. So the cell membrane able to select what molecule enter the cell or exit the cell. Right? And then there are 3 types of transport crossing the cell membrane. The first one is called a passive transport. This is no energy required. Okay, no energy required. Active transport, they require energy. Okay, requires energy. And then the last one is vesicle transport, which is transport molecule using vesicle. Vesicle is like a small organelle that carries something inside. Right? So this is called the vesicle. Like a vehicle, okay? So vehicle maybe outside, okay, like car, but inside our cell is called vesicle. Okay? And then for the passive transport, there are 3 types. Okay? Which is, the first one is called the simple diffusion. This is movement of molecules crossing the cell membrane easily without any help. Okay? Example is oxygen and carbon dioxide transport. Okay? 2 of these gases can be crossing the membrane easily without any help. The second one is facilitated diffusion. No energy required, but they need help. Like for example, iron, iron transport. They need ion channel. Glucose, amino acid, they need transporter. Okay, therefore it's called a facilitated diffusion. Is require facilitation. The energy is not required because they move from higher concentration to lower concentration. And the last one is called the osmosis, and this is spatial movement of water. Okay, water crossing the membrane is called osmosis. It is also a type of passive transport, no energy required. The next one is movement of solute from higher concentration to lower concentration. So no energy required. It's called diffusion. So this is part of passive transport. Remember before there are two types of diffusion. Okay, simple diffusion like oxygen and carbon dioxide, and facilitated diffusion like carbohydrates, glucose, and the amino acid. Right? That's diffusion. And then again, movement of water is called the osmosis. And water is actually have holes to move. It's called the aquaporins. Is water holes in the plasma membrane. The movement of molecules against concentration gradient is mean from lower to higher concentration. This is what we call the active transport. And this one requires energy. Energy that we use in our cell is called ATP. So it requires ATP. There are two types of active transport, primary active transport and secondary active transport. The physical transport, the one that using physical, there are two types. If it is enter into the cell, it's called the endocytosis. Endo means enter. Okay, enter into the cell. If it is exit from the cell, it's called the exocytosis. Exo means exit. Okay, so easy. For the endocytosis, there are two types. If it is eating kind of transport, it's called phagocytosis. Phago means eat. Okay, so this is for bigger molecule. Like for example, our white blood cell can eat bacteria with a process called the phagocytosis. The pinocytosis is like drink, okay, drinking the molecule. So this is for smaller molecules or maybe liquid that transported by vesicle. If it is enter into the cell, it is called the pinocytosis. Okay, so number 18 and number 19, I think we didn't really taught this in the classroom, so I'm gonna show you how it look like. Let's say we have three containers. This is number 1, number 2, and number 3. Okay. This container consists, okay, there is water in it. Water, water, and water. Okay. So on the container number 1, we put red blood cell. In the container number 2, we also put red blood cell. Over here, we also put red blood cell. Okay. This red blood cell is actually has liquid that has about 0.9 salt, sodium chloride in it. 0.9% sodium chloride in red blood cell. So 0.9%. This is also 0.9%. Okay. Let's say the first solution, the water over here, there is no salt in it. So 0% salt. Okay. So this solution is called the hypotonic solution. Hypotonic. Why? Because this solution has lower salt compared to the red blood cell, the solution inside the red blood cell. Therefore, it's called hypo. Hypo means lower. Okay. And the second water over here, solution over here, we put salt and then we measure it until 0.9%. Okay. If you see, you compare the salts in the water in the red blood cell, they are the same, 0.9 and 0.9. So therefore, this water over here, this solution is called the isotonic. Okay? Isotonic solution, the solution that has similar contents with the red blood cell. The last one, the water that we have over here, we put a lot of salt. It's very salty water. Let's say about 9% salt in this water. So this water become what we call the hypertonic solution. Hyper mean too much. Okay, hypertonic solution. Now, what happened with the red blood cell if you put them in different type of solution? In the hypotonic solution, what happens? The water from this container will enter into the cell because the water try to dissolve salt inside the red blood cell. Red blood cell become bigger, 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 and finally explode. That condition is called hemolysis. Okay, so we cannot put red blood cell in water because what? The red blood cell will be broken down. It is called the hemolysis. If we put this red blood cell in the solution that have similar salt, 0.9, then there will be nothing happening. The red blood cell keep fresh. So this is the way the peoples in blood donor keep our blood. They put it in isotonic solution to keep them fresh. And the last one, if we put this red blood cell that has 0.9% salt in the solution that very salty, 9% salt, the water from the cell will be out. Will be out. And then what happened with the cell? It becomes smaller, shrinking. That condition is called crenation. Okay, so these are the three conditions if you put red blood cell in different container with different solute concentration. Okay, now number 18. Solution with higher concentration is called hypertonic. Solution with lower concentration is called the hypotonic. If it is similar concentration, it's called the isotonic. So I may put isotonic over here. Similar concentration. Now, if we put the red blood cells in hypotonic solution, it will broken down. It's called hemolysis, explode. If we put the red blood cell in the hypertonic solution, then the red blood cell will be shrink. It's called crenation. Number 21, the gradients of solute concentrations and electricity between intracellular and extracellular is called the electrochemical gradients. So let's say this cell, this is outside. There is always difference between the electricity because there are more sodium outside. So mostly outside the cell is more positive. Inside the cell is negative. So that's what we call the electrogradient. And also there are more glucose outside the cell, more amino acid outside the cell. And this is what we call the chemical gradients. So if we combine both of them, it's called the electrochemical gradients between outside and inside the cell. There are more sodium inside the cell. And there are more, I'm sorry. This is wrong. Okay, I'm sorry, this is wrong. There are more sodium in the ECF outside the cell. Okay, this is the wrong key. So sodium more outside. And there are more potassium inside the cell, in the ICF. Okay, so make correction on your assignment, okay, if you have it. So more sodium outside the cell and more potassium inside the cell. The primary active transport that we have that control the movement of sodium and potassium is called the sodium potassium ATP pumps. This is called pump because it's pumping against the concentration gradients from lower to higher concentration. Okay, the next one is, remember I mentioned to you, make sure you know all the name of the organelles, including the functions. Okay, mitochondria used for making ATP. Ribosome used for making proteins. RER is used for storing proteins. SER is used for making lipids. Golgi apparatus is used for modifying, packaging, and shipping the proteins and lipids, which is, so if they combine together, it's become enzyme or hormones. Okay, so this is production of hormones, Golgi apparatus. And then the one that will destroying the unneeded protein is called the proteasomes. It has protease, which is enzyme. The organelle responsible for digesting or destroying foreign molecule or cell like bacteria, it is called the lysosome. It has lysozyme. The organelle that responsible for detoxifying organic substances or toxicant is called the peroxisome. Okay, so make sure you memorize the name of these organelles, including their function. Now, cell division. There are two types, mitosis and meiosis. Mitosis is somatic cell division. Meiosis is reproductive cell division. Okay? And somatic cell division or mitosis start from one cell. It will produce two identical cells. Meiosis start with one cell. It will produce four non-identical cells. Okay? If it is male, it produce sperms. Okay, four sperm from one cell, okay? From one spermatocyte. Now the stages, there are four stages for mitosis. And remember, P-MET, okay, that's the sequence. Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. For the meiosis, it's going to be double stages because it's producing double cell. Okay, if mitosis only produce two, the meiosis produce four. So the production is double. Therefore, the stages will be also double. Mitosis have four, then meiosis has 8 stages. The sequence is the same, P-MET, but it's going to be P1, M1, A1, T1, and then P2, M2, A2, and T2. So that's the stages for the meiosis. Okay, I think we're done with chapter 3. Now we go to chapter 4. Anybody have question for chapter 3? Yes or no? Hello? Are you there? Okay, no question. Okay. Then we go to chapter 4. Chapter 4 is about tissue. What is tissue? Tissue is a group of cells. That's easy definition. Okay. So tissue will consist of cells. And the cell usually coming from the same origins. And they work together to make this tissue. In human body, there are only 4 types of tissue. The first one is called the epithelial tissue. Remember the characteristic of epithelial tissue? It consists of cells that bind together tightly. See? So they bind together tightly. That's epithelial tissue. Sometimes they make one layer, sometimes they make many layers. Okay, but they will bind together tightly. That's the epithelial tissue. The second one is the it's called the connective tissue, and the characteristic of this connective tissue is consists of cells that are separated. They do not bind. Between the cell there is matrix. So basically, connective tissue consists of cell and matrix. That's connective tissue. Okay. Muscle tissue. This is a tissue that consists of cell that is long, okay? Elongated cell. And each cell has the ability to contract, become shorter, and relax or stretch, become longer. So it has the ability to contract and stretch. That's the muscle tissue. The nervous tissue consists of special cells that are able to carry action potential. So the cell will have structure like this, with dendrite, cell body, and axon. Okay, so this structure have the ability to respond to sense stimulus and also carry action potential. So that's the nervous tissue. The origins of this tissue, okay, there are actually three origins. So during our embryonic development inside our mother womb, okay, before it is developed into many different type of tissue. If this is, let's say this is embryo inside this mother womb, let's say this is the head, this is the, it's called the tail, okay, caudal. If we cut in the middle, cross section, and then see the sections, then there will be three part, three area. The outer part is called the ectoderm. The middle part is called the mesoderm. The inside part is called the endoderm. Okay. Now look at our body. You know that your GI tract is inside your body. It is in the very middle of your part. Okay, so all the organs of your GI tract is actually made from endoderm. Your, for example, esophagus, stomach, intestine, they're all made from endoderm. Okay, the inside layer. And then the outside layer over here is the one that make the skin. Okay, organ is called the skin. So this is the endoderm make the GI tract organs. Okay, now you can imagine that between this GI tract, between your intestine and your skin, there are many other organs, right? Kidney, liver, heart, muscles. All of them is actually made from mesoderm. Okay, so like heart, kidney, lungs, liver, bones, all of them made from mesoderm. Okay, now based on this information, then you should be able to know that epithelial tissue will be coming from all the germ layer: ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. Why? Because remember I mentioned to you that every organ will be covered by the epithelial tissue as a protection. So your GI tract, your esophagus, your stomach will have epithelial tissue on it, right? Your liver, the heart will also have epithelial tissue. Your skin, of course, it has epithelial tissue. Okay, so that's the reason why epithelial tissue is coming from all three germ layers. Now, how about connective tissue? Connective tissue mostly on the organ that between your GI tract and the skin. Like your bone is connective tissue, your blood is connective tissue. Therefore, connective tissue is made from mesoderm. How about muscle? Muscle also organs that located between your GI tract, between your intestine and the skin, and it is made of mesoderm. So, muscle tissue made of mesoderm or from mesoderm. Now, how about nervous tissue? This is a little bit tricky because it is say endoderm. But remember, your brain and spinal cord is actually between intestine and the skin. So during the development of the baby, the nervous tissue or brain and spinal cord is actually coming from ectoderm. Okay, so this layer over here, but that layer will be folding inside. Okay, folding inside and finally located in the middle area, between GI tract and the skin. But originally, this is coming from ectoderm. Okay, so nervous tissue is from ectoderm. So this is the development of the 4 different tissues. Now the junction, tight junction, adherent junction, desmosome, hemidesmosome, and gap junction. This is only present in the tissue that bind closely, which is going to be epithelial tissue and the muscle tissue. Okay, remember connective tissue, the cells are separate. There will be no junction in the connective tissue. The same thing with the nervous tissue, there will be no junction. There is no connection between neurons and another neuron. There is space, okay? There is no junction. So the junction is only present in epithelial tissue and muscle tissue. Now for the epithelial tissue, they have these 4 types of junction: tight junction, adherent junction, desmosome, and hemidesmosome. Okay, gap junction, it is located in the muscle tissue, especially cardiac muscle. So cardiac muscle has a type of junction, is called gap junction. Number 9, epithelial tissue based on function. There are 2 types. The first one is the one that's used for protection, absorption, diffusion, or filtration. They are usually covering the organ or lining the organs. So they have these functions. The second one is the epithelial tissue that produce liquid, okay, like hormones, sweat, mucus, and other type like tears, wax, and this is called the glandular epithelial tissue. The function is for secretion. Based on structure, there will be 3 types of epithelial tissue. If the cell is flat, it's called squamous. So the cell flat. If the cell is look like cube, it's called the cuboidal. Cuboidal. The cell look like cube. If the cell is tall, like a column, it's called a columnar. So there's the ET, epithelial tissue, based on the shape of the cell. Classification based on layers. This is also structure. If it is only one layer of epithelial tissue, then it is called simple. Simple epithelial tissue. If it is more than one layer, maybe 2, 3, 4, even 100 layer, it is called a stratified ET, epithelial tissue. If it is actually one layer, but it look like two layer, because the cells are different size. If you see it from the front part of here, it look like two layer, but it's actually one layer. It is called a pseudo stratified. Pseudo mean fake. Okay, so this is fake stratification. Okay, number 12, glandular ET. Primarily, the function is for secretion, producing hormones, enzyme, tears, sweat, oil, mucus, wax, milk. That's glandular function. Two types of gland, exocrine gland and endocrine gland. Endocrine gland is the gland that produce the products, and the products stay inside our body, especially in the blood. So this is actually the one that produce hormone. So hormone is produced by our cell, and the hormones stay inside the cell, inside our body. Therefore, it's called the endocrine. Endo mean enter or inside. So the products stay inside our body. Exocrine, the name is telling you the product is actually exit from our body. What is examples? Sweat, tears, mucus, milk. They all exit from our body. Therefore, they are produced by glands that is called the exocrine gland. So that's the difference between endocrine glands and exocrine gland. The next one is connective tissue. So now is connective tissue, the second type of tissue. Again, connective tissue consists of cells and matrix. The cells are separated. They are not bind one another. Okay. And the matrix consists of two substances. The first one is called the ground substances, and the second one is called fibers. So two components of matrix, ground substances and fiber. The ground substances, there are three types. The first one is solid. Solid ground substances like bone. Bones, you know, the matrix is very, very solid. It is very hard. Because what? Because the ground substances of the bone is solid. Solid substances. The second one is gelatinous substances. It looks like a gel. It is not solid. It is not liquid. Like for example, our skin, under our skin, there is a ground substance that gelatinous. It's not really solid, but it is also not liquid. So when you push your skin, you can feel it. You can push it, but it's going back again. So there is a gelatinous substances under our skin. And the last one is liquid ground substances. This is example is bone. Blood. Okay. So blood, it has water. It's called the blood plasma. That blood plasma is actually the ground substances for the blood tissue. The fiber, the fibers of matrix, it has also three types. If it is very, very thin, it's called a reticular fiber, very thin fiber. The second one is called the elastic fiber. It is a little bit thicker and elastic. And the last one is collagen fiber. This is the thickest one and the strongest one. It is thick and a little bit rigid type of fiber. So these are the fibers of matrix of the connective tissue. Now the division of connective tissue, there are 5 of them. The first one is called the loose connective tissue. It means that the fiber is losing. It's maybe sometimes there is no fiber. Sometimes there are fiber, but the fiber is very rare. It's not that many in that connective tissue. Therefore, it's called loose. The second one is called dense, and the name is telling you it has so many fibers that they close one another, making a dense type of fiber on this connective tissue. Therefore, it's called a dense connective tissue. Yeah. Example is our joints. It's our joint. We have a dense connective tissue. Our tendons, which is connective tissue that connect bones and muscle, it has dense type of connective tissue, a lot of fibers. Our artery, especially aorta, is the wall of the aorta is actually has dense connective tissue. Okay, cartilage, connective tissue. Example is our front of the nose. You have cartilage over there. Our ear, we have cartilage over there. So these are made of cartilage. And then bone. This is the fourth type of connective tissue, bone or solid connective tissue, and the name is telling you it has a solid matrix, solid ground substances with many collagen fibers. And liquid connective tissue, like blood, of course, it has liquid type of ground substances. Sometimes you don't see the fibers in this liquid connective tissue, because the fiber dissolve in the water. So this the 5 type of connective tissue. The next one, okay, the third type of tissue is called muscle tissue. And muscle tissue consists of elongated contractile cell. The cell that is long and able to contract and stretch. That's the muscle tissue. There are 3 types: skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. The skeletal muscle is the muscle that attaches to our bones. Its function is to move our bones, to move our skeletons. Cardiac muscle, it is located on the wall of the heart. The function is to pump the blood. The smooth muscle is located on the wall of hollow organs like GI tract organ, urinary tract organ, respiratory tract organ. The function is to move contents of the hollow organs. Again, the muscle, skeletal muscle, we able to control the skeletal muscle movement. You can control your bone movement, right? Because what? Because skeletal muscle can be controlled. Therefore, this skeletal muscle is called voluntary. We able to move it if we do it. So we're able to control that movement. Cardiac muscle and smooth muscle, you cannot really control the movement. It will be controlled automatically. It will contract by itself. You cannot really say stop, or you cannot say, okay, start contraction. No, because what? Because these 2 muscles, cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, it is known as the involuntary muscle, the muscle that work automatically. From the structure, the skeletal muscles and cardiac muscle, if you see under the microscope, it will have stripes. It will have stripes. The smooth muscle, if you see under the microscope, there is no stripe. So smooth muscle, it is called smooth because no stripe. The skeletal muscle attached to the bone or skeletons. The cardiac muscle attached on the wall of the heart, and the smooth muscle is on the wall of the hollow organs, including blood vessel. It has smooth muscle on it. Okay, the last one, the last tissue is called the nervous tissue. The main function is to detect, process, and give response in order to control homeostasis. Remember, our brain is the main control for homeostasis. This is the control center. Remember, homeostasis, it has 3 main components: receptor, control center, and the effector. Right? So the control center is the nervous tissue, which is brain or spinal cord. Nervous tissue consists of two groups of cells. The first one is called neurons, which is the functional cell of nervous tissue. This is the one that perform the functions to detect, process, and give response. This is the one that perform the job of nervous system. Neuroglia, this is another group of cells that actually only support the neuron. So the function of neuroglia is just supporter for the neuron. They do not perform the action potential or carry response, sense, and etc. Okay, so neuroglia is the supporters only. The function of neuron conduct nerve impulses or action potential. The function of neuroglia is to support, nourish, support, and protect the neurons. That's the function of neuroglia. Neuron has three parts, dendrite. So when you memorize this part, make sure you memorize from the beginning because it is only one way, okay, one direction. So the stimulus is going to one direction. Start from dendrites. The stimulus will be received by dendrite. So this is the receiver for stimulus. And then the stimulus will go to the cell body or soma to be processed. So this is process the stimulus. The last part is axon. So when the soma process the stimulus, it will produce the response. The response has to be carried by axon. So axon has the function to carry response or order. It will be carried to the mostly to the effector. And the effector will perform the action based on the order carried by these neurons. There are 6 types of neuroglia, 4 of them located in the CNS. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 over here, located in the CNS. What is the CNS? It's actually brain and the spinal cord. That's the CNS. So these 4 neuroglia located in the brain and spinal cord, which is astrocyte, give the food to the neurons. Oligodendrocyte produce the myelin sheath for the neuron. Myelin sheath is cover for axon that will make axon work faster. Microglia, this is actually white blood cell that protect the neurons from bacteria or infection. And then ependymal cell, this is the neuroglia that produce the CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. So it's produce the fluid that protect the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, again, these 4 neuroglia located in the CNS. The other 2 neuroglia located in the PNS, peripheral nervous system, which is nerve. Nerve, they are located outside the brain and spinal cord. So it has 2 neuroglia that help their neurons. Satellite cell, this is the one that feed the neuron in the PNS. Schwann cell, it is the one that produce the covering or myelin sheath for the neurons in the PNS. Now, if we order the ability of tissue to repair themselves, to perform mitosis, cell division, then the best tissue that able to perform mitosis or repair is epithelial tissue, easy to repair. It's actually replacement almost every 10 days. Your skin cell, which is epithelial tissue, will be repaired, will be replaced. Connective tissue also have the ability to repair, but it's a little bit longer compared to the epithelial tissue. Example is blood. Your blood is repaired or replaced every 120 days. if your bone broken, it can be repaired. Maybe take about 4 months to repair the bone. Okay, so connective tissue has the ability to repair. Muscle tissue and nervous tissue, they mostly cannot be repaired except the smooth muscle. Smooth muscle still be able to repair. But other muscle like skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, when it is broken, it is become scar. Eh? The same thing with the brain, spinal cord. When it is broken, it becomes scars, scar tissue, which is unfunctional. So they cannot be repaired. Okay, now the last chapter, chapter 5, which is the first organ system for our class, which is the integumentary system. Remember, we have 11 organ system in our body. The first one is integumentary system, which is the system that cover our body, protect our body. The organs is called skin. Okay? Remember, system consists of organs. Only one organ for this integumentary system is called the skin, which is the biggest and largest organs of the body. Okay, so this is the largest organs in our body, in human body. That's the skin. The skin also have some structure. It's called the accessory structure, like hair, nail, and glands. Okay? That's the additional structure on the skin. What is the function of the skin or integumentary system? First, of course, protection, because this is cover our body. It is protects against physical, chemical, or biological challenges. Second is maintaining body temperature. When our body temperature increase, we produce the sweat. It will lower. It will make our body temperature become lower. And then providing sensory information like touch, pain, heat, cold, pressure, vibrations. We have that ability to sense it because what? Because we have the sensory information in our skin. Fourth, production of precursor of vitamin D. Vitamin D is really important for our bone. It will make our bone stronger. It's also very important for our immune system. And the skin has the ability to produce the precursor of vitamin D. The vitamin D itself is made in kidney. Okay, it's made in kidney, but the substrate is made by the skin. Okay, so the final product is in the kidney, but the first product is actually made in the skin. And the last one is for excretions of wastes like salts, urea, ammonia, and some carbon dioxide. When our skin produces the sweat, it carries some of these waste products. There are two layers of the skin. The top layer is called the epidermis, and the inside layer is called dermis. There are two types of skin, thin skin and thick skin. Thick skin has 5 layers of epidermis, which is stratum basale, spinosum, granulosum, lucidum, and corneum. Remember in the classroom, you have to memorize this in sequence. How to memorize it? You just memorize the first letter of the name. Stratum basale starts with a B. So you say boy, spinosum, say, granulosum, you can girls, lucidum starts with L, so like or look. Okay, corneum starts with a C, you can say cute. So if you remember this, boy says girls look cute, then you might be able to remember the sequence of the layer in the epidermis of the thick skin. Now, how about the thin skin? Only have 4 layers. So the one that is not present is the stratum lucidum. So stratum lucidum only present in the thick skin. It is not present in the thin skin. Okay. Now, if you compare your skin, if you check your skin, okay, the thin skin, it has hair. Okay. It has oil gland. Okay. And then less sweat gland. That on your thin skin. The thick skin, okay, no hair, no oil glands, more sweat gland. Okay, so based on this information, then you know which one is your thick skin and thin skin. So thick skin will be located on the palm of your hand and the sole of your feet. So that's location for the thick skin. The rest of your skin will be thin skin. Number 7, type of cells in the epidermis. 99% will be keratinocyte. It is called keratinocyte because it carry proteins called the keratin that used for water repellent. So this is the one that protect our body from dehydration, losing more water. And this is also the one that protects against many physical, chemicals, or biological challenges. It protect us against bacteria, protect us against heat, cold, protect us against maybe heat from someone. Okay, so this is the keratinocyte. The second one is called melanocyte. It is called melanocyte because it produces melanin, which is dark skin pigment. The next one is Langerhans cell, and this is actually white blood cell that stay in the skin. Therefore, it is protect us against disease. The last one is Merkel cell. This is a type of sensory cell. So therefore, it helps us to sense, especially sensing touch sensation. Epidermis is also known as avascular. So A means no. Okay, so no non-vascular is mean no blood vessel in the epidermis. So if you cut your epidermis, there will be no blood because no blood vessel. So non-vascular means no blood vessel. So how this skin, the epidermis, get the nutrient? It is coming from the dermis layer. The top of dermis layer is called the papillary region. So it's coming from papillary region. The keratinization is the process of replacement of cell content with keratin. So keratinocyte on the top one in the stratum corneum, mostly dead cell because there will be no nucleus on the keratinocyte. It is replaced by the keratin. Therefore, the top layer of our skin will always gone, will always replaced by the bottom layer. Because they do not have nucleus. They mostly have keratin for protection. Psoriasis is the abnormality of the skin or disorder of the skin when the process of keratinization is really, really fast. Usually it's happening every 10 days for one cell. Psoriasis may be less than 7 days. So the process of replacement is really fast. Therefore, the skin will become flaky. A lot of dead skin in this person, the one that has psoriasis. The second layer of the skin is called the dermis layer, consists of papillary layer and reticular layer. So papillary layer is the top layer that connected to the epidermis, about 20% thickness, and the 80% of this dermis layer is reticular region. Type of skin color, pigment, melanin, this is dark skin pigment. Carotene, this is yellow, orange skin pigment, and hemoglobin, this is the red pigment. The accessory structure of the skin, there are hair, nail, and gland. Mostly exocrine gland. So the glands of the skin, mostly exocrine gland. Now the hair. Hair consists of 4 components. The one that you see is called the hair shaft. This is the longest part of the hair. Inside the hair shaft, you see the cuticle, the hair cuticle. You can see this under the microscope. And then the one that actually located in the dermis of the skin is called the hair root. Okay, and then close to the hair root there is a group of cells that divide, that make your hair growing. That one is called the hair follicle. So remember this one, the hair follicle, which is the germ layer for hair growth. Okay? And then the hair growth, there are 2 stages, growing stages and resting stages. Okay, maybe you know that your hair sometimes is growing, but it's not the same growing. Some of them is growing, some of them is not really growing. So after several months, your hair will not the same length, because there are some hair that in the growing stage, there are maybe some hair in the resting stage. And then normal hair loss is about 70 to 100 hair per day, so this is normal. And the glands of the skin, this is mostly exocrine gland. The first one is called the oil gland. The second one is sweat gland. The next one is wax gland, which is in your ear canal. And the milk gland, especially for women, they produce milk from this milk gland. For the sweat gland, there are 2 types, eccrine and apocrine. So mostly our sweat gland is eccrine gland. This is located in almost skin in our body. But there are some area in our body that produce stickier, sticky sweat. And this gland is called the apocrine gland. Like for example, under the armpits, okay, under on the groin area, okay? And this is producing a stickiest sweat. And this one is called the apocrine gland. Nail is actually consists of keratinized cell, which is dead cell, that's become very, very thick. And the cell that produce the nail is called the nail matrix. So under your nail, there are a group of cells that keep growing, keep dividing. And this group of cells is called nail matrix. So you have to remember this, okay, nail matrix for nail. For the hair, the cell that keep dividing is called hair follicle. Okay, so these 2 information is really important for your exam. So the nail matrix is for growing nail, the hair follicle is for growing hair. Type of wounds on the skin is called the epidermal wounds and deep wounds. Epidermal wounds mean the wounds that happening in the epidermis, are usually easy to replace. The deep wound, if it is go deep, sometimes it's become scar. So it's scar tissue. Skin cancer, there are 3 types. Mostly it's called the basal cell carcinoma. It arises from basal cell. It is not that dangerous because it's not spreading. 78% of skin cancer is in this basal cell carcinoma type. The second one is squamous cell carcinoma. This is arise from epithelial cell, the keratinocyte. And this is about 20% of the skin cancer cases. And usually it's not that dangerous, between dangerous and not dangerous. Sometimes it's spread to other location in our body. But the most dangerous one is called the malignant melanoma. This is coming from melanocyte. It's going to be darker. The color is darker for the melanoma cancer. It's only 2% of the case, but this is dangerous. Okay, so this is dangerous skin cancer because they are metastasized. Metastasized means they move from skin to other organs in our body. Burns on the skin, there are three types: first degree, second degree, and third degree. First degree means it's only located in the epidermis, like sunburn, for example. So sunburn is first degree. It can be replaced. The second degree burn is epidermis and dermis area. Okay, get damaged. And the third degree, when the burn is actually also affecting the layer under the skin, it's called the subcutaneous layer. Maybe including the muscles under the skin that get burned. That's the third degree burn. I think that's all for this review.